So let's talk about the call. And I think what we'll do on the call, we'll save the call portion for a few minutes. I'm going to talk a little bit further as to if you were today to make a call to a consumer. A couple of things we want to talk about. One, you're probably going to leave a message. Unfortunately, we know that it takes 9 attempts to get a person on the phone. If you wind up leaving a message, what does it say? This is what we'd recommend. Bob, this is Jim. I'm calling from ABT Motors. The reason for the phone calls, I just wanted to make sure that you got the email I sent you with all the pricing and so on and so forth. Would you do me a favor is to give me a call back? Sometimes due to the email filters and spam blockers, people aren't able to get those emails. It's really important to know that we answered your questions and I did the job that you're expecting me to do on my end. Here's my telephone number. I look forward to hearing from you. That message is a little bit more articulate because it's less along the line of I'm trying to sell you something. People resist and they see the caller ID of a dealership many times, unless they're looking for the call or looking to talk to you, they're afraid of being sold, so therefore they'll let it go on the other end. If I know the only purpose of the phone call is to confirm that you received it, I'm more apt to get back to you or to respond to returning your messages, which gets you on the phone with the ultimate prospect. If we don't do that, we talk about the experiences, and most of the experiences that take place at a dealership, when I do the role playing with them, is they say that they try to call the customer before they wind up sending them a price quote. And inevitably, we know from a few slides earlier that customers ask us those two main questions is, gosh, do you have the car? And if you do, how much is it? That is the most difficult transition and will usually take you further from the sale and, more importantly, further from your opportunity of creating a reasonable gross profit. And we do this in the dealerships. We do a tremendous amount of training on the phone because that's the biggest, most powerful part of converting these leads is a very wonderful and articulate phone script that is devoted towards creating the relationship, understanding the customer's needs, and giving them compelling reasons why to drive past 3 or 4 other dealerships to come and see you. And we're going to actually do the phone script in section 4 in a few minutes. So you definitely want to look at that from a role-playing standpoint. The timing that we found is extremely articulate as to when we send the emails out versus when you make the phone call to get and maximize the best opportunity from a result standpoint. So let's take a look at a process that we've identified and some of the needs behind that process that I think will yield you the best results across the board. Much like the meet and greet, the fact finding, the inventory walk, the product presentation, you see, we don't believe that the sales process will ever change. So your auto response in many cases is sort of a meet and greet. This is why our dealership's different. We congratulate you on choosing Chevrolet as a brand in which you're looking for. Let me tell you why our Chevrolets are better today than they ever have been. Let me tell you why our dealership's a little bit better than we have been. Here's some contact information, and based on the pretense of saying let's under-promise and over-deliver, I promise to get back to you in 4 business hours, as long as we can make sure that that time is significantly less than that. As soon as your internet person or BDC person gets that email, we'd recommend that they send an introduction, and we like to have pictures built into that email of them because it's a personal business. People buy cars from people, and people buy cars from people they like. The more that they can identify with that individual that they may like or may like the way they look, or that they feel comfortable because they don't look like some image of what you see when you close your eyes and think of the word car salesman, it softens the approach and makes it a little bit more comfortable for them to proceed with that. The next thing that we do is we engage them with a question, and the question is designed based on a course of psychology to open up our inventory and get them to start thinking about some other stuff. So that ask a question email is worded something like this: Mr. Jones, I just received your request for a Chevy Silverado. I did have a couple of questions because I may not have received all the details through the email systems related to your purchase. Are there any colors that you would not accept, and what options are most important to you? If I don't hear from you shortly, that's okay. I may have to make some assumptions about your request. I will still get back to you with my price quote within my 4 business hour commitment. The idea behind that is that you're able to quote them something in stock as opposed to do a locate or find something different. But more importantly is that sometimes when you get a lead for a 2012 Chevy Silverado, you don't have any of the details, so therefore you can make the assumptions without offending the customer by not saying that it's on target. Immediately following that email, we recommend that sending a price quote. And I'm going to move ahead in the slides and then come back to this one in a minute. We recommend the price quote must have at least 5 elements if you're going to succeed at the highest level. The first is, what is the closest match to what you have in stock? It's pretty easy for you to scroll through your inventory from your website and say, okay, the guy wants a 2012 Chevy Silverado, and he didn't specify any equipment. It wasn't any trim packages or anything else. Therefore, I would probably go with what is the cheapest Chevy Silverado that I have available, and I would provide him with the information on that as car choice number 1. The second item would be a vehicle that's at least 10% less expensive. In this particular case, if the customer didn't have a cheaper car, because that was the cheapest Silverado, I would probably have to choose a demo, or I would choose one that's 1 or 2 years old as a second choice car. But you guys know the answer to that question. As professionals in your industry, if it were a car for your mom, your dad, your best friend, your uncle, your aunt, your brother, your son, or your daughter, would you choose a car that's 10% less expensive? Which one would that be? You know the answers to that question. Then we want to do a picture of a similar vehicle that's pre-owned, that's still yet even less expensive, and that, of course, is giving the customer the idea is if this is what you asked for, here's a smart purchase that could save you some money. By the way, we have vehicles in this category priced as little as this. And I don't think it's necessary to include all the details about the pre-owned vehicle. Maybe they need to contact you for the miles or the equipment or some other stuff that's on there. But again, remember that you're giving them options, but you're leaving them wanting more. The impression will be that your pricing will be cheaper than your competitors who answered them on one specific car, and the competitors who answered them on one specific car will probably give them an opportunity to say, can you beat it, where yours doesn't give that unless they communicate with you professionally. The fourth element in the price quote is an estimate of how many other vehicles that you have access to that are similar. And the key word is access, which means technically anything north or south of a Silverado in size or brand, maybe even Avalanche or maybe some of the other stuff that you'd have to choose from, that would be considered if anybody's ever came in to buy a Silverado and bought an Avalanche or something in addition instead. And you would probably be able to include not just the vehicles on your lot that are new and used, but also the vehicles in your trade area that you could trade to it. So we have access to as many as 321 vehicles that are similar, some of which have equipment packages that could save you a significant amount of money. Once again, creating the desire, if I take the time to drive out to see you, you will probably have what I'm looking for. And second is, let me tell you more specifically about what my needs are so that it creates that dialogue and moves forward from a psychological standpoint. And the last but not least is permission to call. So built into that, it says it's really important due to email filters and spam blockers to know that you did receive this and that we did answer your questions. So unless I hear from you shortly, I will be calling to verify you received it and answer any questions. Not only does it set the stage and grant you permission to cross the barrier and make the phone call, but it really sort of sets the stage at your fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we did answer that customer's questions from a professional standpoint. So we think these elements will help us in that process. Now, from a salesman standpoint at the dealership, there's very few things we ask them to do. Is to click the introduction email, click the question email, build a price quote, and simply make their 9 phone calls within the first 3 weeks of the prospect's life. Hopefully, your dealerships have been able to articulate and automate a series of emails that go out at day 3, 5, 10, 14, day 20, day 24, day 28, day 30, day 38, and day 45 that are triggers and are professional emails designed to articulate and captivate the attention of the consumer and get them to respond. Beyond that time frame, I'm a big fan of sending a newsletter once a month, maybe those weekly emails about safety tips for the kids for Halloween, happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, this day in history baseball was invented, special of the week, which would include a new car and a used car special, and then some type of perhaps a service special built into it. And if you can, build a recipe into the bottom and watch the cultivation of these relationships and the ability for you to stay in the forefront of the customer's mind so that when their lease is due, when their car breaks down, when the first snow happens, when the first daylight of spring takes place, that you are at the right place at the right time and can captivate on those sales techniques. So that concludes Section 3. On Section 4, we're going to get into the techniques of the phone, the psychology of it, and more importantly, how to build an appointment and get someone to drive past 3 or 4 other dealerships to come and see you. Thanks for participating. We'll see you in Section 4 in just a minute.